What you are listening to is real. The parties involved are not cool. They are actual geeks with a case pending in the court of public opinion. The party's case has been dismissed, and the dispute will be settled here on our podcast. There will be no lawyers, there will be no witness testimony. The judge's decisions are final.
Hello, I'm Judge Ivan.
I'm Judge Jonathan, and this is Geeks on Trial. Today's case, pay to play.
Welcome to Geeks on Trial. This is the podcast where we settle petty disputes between actual geeks over movies, video games, board games, and so much more. If you would like to submit your own geeky case for a future episode, you can do so by emailing us at geeksontrial@gmail.com. You can also support the show, please do, over at patreon.com/geeksontrial for just a few bucks a month. And you will receive early access to both our audio and our video episodes before they are released to the general public. And now, a summary of today's case.
Today's case comes to us from the internet. You can find a link in our episode description. The subject of this case is game night, that beloved pastime of geeks all over the planet. On trial today is an individual who we will call Chris. Chris hosts board game nights centered around campaign-style board games. For the uninitiated, that means a board game with an ongoing story or series of quests that requires multiple play sessions to complete. In return for hosting and purchasing the games in question, from time to time, Chris asks his fellow players to contribute between $10 and $20, ostensibly to help recoup game costs, plus to make up for the setup and preparation time involved. However, at least one of the other players finds this practice questionable, feeling that their presence making the game possible to play at all should be enough to compensate Chris. As dual judges here on Geeks on Trial, it's now our job to determine whether Chris is correct, or if pay to play is no way to play. That's what we're here to determine today.
It's true.
I rhymed again. Hey.
You did.
Now, this is the all-rhyming episode of Geeks on Trial.
Oh, I did not sign up for that. You're going to hear a loud noise. There you go.
Oh, great. The loud noise is gone now. I was happy it's gone.
Good.
So that's a summary of our case. As again, it is centered around board games, which is something that we know intimately here on the show. We've had many a game night, shared many a game night together,
Right.
Maybe even played in some campaigns, certainly Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if,
Right.
I'm not sure if, we've played Descent back in the day. So we've both been involved in some campaign style board games
over
as well.
the years, there have been campaigns that have popped up.
Yes, they've popped. They almost always end the same way, which is that you don't finish them.
Right. Because either, you start a campaign, then a worldwide pandemic happens, and then you can't meet up for like 3.5 years. Little things like that kind of push the campaign just into a dark pit.
Little things, which is really, that's what probably the worst outcome of things like global pandemics
Right.
is the fact that it's harder to play your campaign board games.
Right.
That is really rough. But
Which
you know,
actually, anyway, I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's kind of weird because we played more campaign games during the pandemic because of online play with like what was that website? Dice Roll20 or whatever that
Roll20
website
for
was?
for role playing games. That's online is pretty easy.
Right.
For physical board games, it certainly requires a little more in-person interactivity for the most part. Now, maybe for people who aren't big board game heads, we should explain a little more about the style of campaign games. Typically speaking, I would say they're not much more expensive than your average hobbyist board game. I would say they probably run from $50 to $80,
Right.
depending on the complexity and the amount of pieces in it. There may be some that are more expensive or cheaper, but I'd say that's like about the average. And typically they play around 4 players.
Mhm.
Now, there are some details of this case that we don't have the concrete facts on.
Right.
Specifically, the quote was that they ask for $10 to $20 occasionally. Now, I don't know if that's like every time they buy a new board game,
Right.
or or are they just splitting the cost of it and doing some math, or are they just saying like every few weeks I deserve $10 because I keep doing this?
Well, yeah, that's the issue that I have. Is it to, like you said, to cover the game itself, or is it like to cover extras that you get. Oh, I bought a bunch of minis for everyone. Here, give me some money for these. Or is it like they didn't really say it's for like snacks and stuff. It's just for playing this specific game at this specific time. Give me money occasionally.
Yeah, it feels like an entry fee to
Right.
continue to gaining access to this game. I think we should say again, you and I have played in a number of games, and we have never no one has ever asked for money for games of any kind, right?
Well,
That's
I've
never
been
happened.
sending you invoices and you just keep ignoring them.
Well,
So,
I sent you that was a fake address that I gave you, which is why I
oh,
haven't been getting those. Otherwise, I would have paid them.
oh, he's right. But yeah, I've never, even at like, I mean, I guess conventions doesn't count, but even like in tournaments, unless there is a cash prize, you're not really paying to play said game because I don't know if we want to get into this yet, but like when you have a gaming group, assuming his group is the exact same 4 to whatever people every week, which usually in a campaign it has to be roughly.
Usually, yeah.
I just don't understand. Like you, like somebody else will buy a game or somebody else will bring a game to the table. So it's weird to ask for money just because you bought said game.
Yeah, well, and it's there's also a matter of it's one thing if you're all a group and you decide together, we all want to play this game, let's go in on it to make the costs easier.
Right.
Versus what it sounds like is the case here, and is most always the case in our group too, is one person just says, "I really want to play this game. I'm going to buy it." And it's like, well, that was your decision. If you didn't
Right.
want to pay the money, you shouldn't have paid for it. But don't expect everyone else to just go, oh well, I guess I owe you for that thing you decided to do without asking me.
Yeah, because it's very rare because we basically have our same group of people between roughly between 3 people and 10 people depending on how a game night works. But if anybody was like, "Hey, I want to try this game," usually we just go to our local store and buy it. You're right.
Yeah,
Like unless it's, back when we used to do the game reviewing stuff, we were able to get copies, but that's a different thing that I won't throw into this at all.
yeah, that's a very
Um,
different ball of wax,
but
to
I
use a
don't
phrase from 1943.
right. It was the bee's knees back in the day. Um, so it's strange to me, and it's not just going off of what was said in the case. It's not at the beginning of said game. It's not like we bought game. Give me $10 to $20, which the price range seems astronomical to begin with. But it's not. It's randomly. So like, what peaks that cost?
Yeah, it sounds like it's mostly based on like buying the games, perhaps buying expansions. But again, that's like a thing you do once, pretty much.
Right.
So it sounds like these costs are more for it's my home that I'm hosting it in. I spent time to learn the rules. Maybe I spent 30 minutes every week to like set the game up, make sure everyone's stuff is in order. It's
Right.
it's it's that kind of thing. It sounds like, which, and I think it's also important to point out from what it sounds like in the description of this case, this is not maybe a super close group of friends. At least the one person who is not sure about the practice says they're newer to the group.
Right.
So it sounds like it could be like people who met up at a game store or online. And that's also a little different if maybe it's more understandable to ask for some money if you're going to I don't know, but even then you're asking for people to come play with you. I don't know, it feel like they're giving up their time too. You know what I mean? These games
Right.
are a commitment. Like you've got to spend weeks, often months meeting up for various nights. Even a shorter end campaign game typically I would say take between 10 and 15 sessions, and those
Right.
sessions can take probably 2 hours, not including setup, tear down, people going to the bathroom, getting something to eat. Like it's a night of it.
Right.
That's a chunk of time that I feel like if you really want to play the game, not to, I mean, already I'm ready to give a verdict already,
Me
but
too, but yeah.
feels like that's kind of on you to. It seems like a lot to expect them to pay money on top of giving their time to it.
Now, a few things I wanted to bring up aren't so I've never played at like a local game shop for anything because that's not my I have anxiety problems. I don't like new people. So I don't like going and just randomly sitting at a table with new people. But can't you pay to play a game at a game shop? Like there are professional dungeon masters and people like that you can like if you go to your game shop on a D&D night, you can pay an entry in like a door fee and they'll have somebody there to be your DM. Because being a DM, assuming this is a DM style game, isn't like everyone's cup of tea, but they still want to play said game.
I mean, I certainly it sounds like this is more in the vein of things like Gloomhaven or
Mm,
Pandemic Legacy, where there's not pretty much everyone is on the same playing field.
right,
I mean, Gloomhaven is a more maybe one person has a better handle of the rules. Maybe they handle the monsters attacking things like that, but. It's certainly a far cry from a role playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, where being the dungeon master of a game like that requires a lot of work.
right,
uh, uh, at least more that there's different styles of DMing, but especially if you're making a world from scratch, even if you're reading from a book, though, there's a lot of prep time that goes into it.
right,
Certainly, way more than a standard board game.
right.
And yeah, there are these like professional DM services. I don't know how widespread they are, but I feel like those are like, oh, you want to try D&D, or you want to like your friend group wants to play D&D like
Mhm,
for a special like weekend or for their birthday or something.
right,
But I don't think many of them are like ongoing. I don't know how many people have a I pay this DM every at that point I feel
yeah.
like you should just be friends with them and have them DM for free.
Unless they're like, I guess, like a voice actor or somebody who's like, yeah, you're right. You're paying for like an in-game, like you rent out like a dungeon space that's like thematic, you know.
Yeah, but I don't know. People, like you said, it is people do provide these services for a fee. It is a thing that exists. So maybe maybe now we're undervaluing DMs. The next question is how much do you tip your DM at the end
Right.
of a game?
But
Um,
yeah, I want to know because like if they're going to the game owner's house, what is like okay, you're paying for just the game, but like to get there, you're paying for gas to get there, assuming they all don't live in a walking distance. You're right. You're putting in your time, just like everyone else at the table, and if he's not the only one buying these games, what would like why would I bring games to the table if I'm like what's the cash benefit from this? You
what's
know,
your
like
what
what
dollar
are we
per
getting?
entertainment ratio?
Right. Because we've talked about like escape room at home escape room games and how much like, sometimes they're expensive and they cost a bunch. But you've brought up the point of you pay that much to go see a movie in a theater.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing, but I don't I would be off put.
Well, you're touching on an important point, I think, which is that something like an escape room is a one and done experience.
Right.
So that to me almost makes more sense. They have these home versions like the Exit or Unlock, where you spend a few hours and it's done. I mean, you often like the Exit ones you can't replay because you're actually like cutting up pieces and
Right.
stuff. So that almost makes more sense to me to be like, let's all chip in and buy one of these. Now, legacy games can be different. Nowadays, some of the older ones you played through once and they were done forever.
Mhm.
Most of the modern legacy games you can replay.
Yeah, because
S-
people were
s-
getting upset that they were buying these games and they couldn't really play with another group or what have you.
right. So I think that lends more to the argument again of it's not like the person who owns this game could get more value out of it in the future without this group, as opposed
Right.
to it being like we should all go in on this together
Right.
because once it's over, it's over.
Mhm.
So I think that's, I don't know. It's another thing to take into consideration. Also, like stepping back from campaign games too, just in general. You know, when we've hosted game nights for a long time, I am, I would say, one of the two people basically in our friend group who has the biggest board game collection.
Right.
So it's usually like a 50-50 between the two of us of who's providing most of the games, with occasionally someone will bring a game of their own
Right.
to play as well. And I wonder if there are people out there who are in that situation who feel like they are owed something for being the ones who buy all the games. Because from
Mm.
my perspective, I feel like, at least for me, and it seems like the sense I get from most board gamers is that they're just so happy to get to play any game. Like
Right.
they're so relieved someone will play something with them that usually I feel like people in this community are, they're thrilled to put their money up. They won't ask for, they're like, "You'll come over? Great. I'll get the snacks, the drinks, whatever you want." The fact that you're actually willing to sit down and play with me, that's payment enough in my
Right.
book.
Well, it also brings up, like, other parties and other social gatherings, like, when you have a dinner party at your house, are you handing each person a bill at the end of said dinner party?
Yes.
"Oh. Oh, I owe you money."
Yeah, yeah.
But it's that
Yeah.
kind of like, it's that vibe of like, "Oh, we're having a" sure, you could bring your own foods and stuff, like a potluck, but, like, if you're inviting people over for this kind of thing, you hosting it is because you have the option to not host it.
Right. Right. No
Like
one's holding a gun to your head.
right.
Yeah, and that is a different I think what becomes a little bit different with game nights is they tend to be recurring,
Right.
right? As opposed to a one-off dinner party. So when it does come to things like food and drink, that is more when it's like, yeah, one person shouldn't be buying the drinks and snacks every single week, because if it's every week, then it starts to be a lot.
Yeah.
Like that's when you can start asking people for stuff. But I still, again, have never. Food is one thing, but games always feels like I'm the one, speaking for me personally, who wants the game. Like,
Right, because, like, you're not just a person who's like, "Oh, let me try this." You and most board gamers are like, they collect games.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
you
that's
like buying like, this is your hobby.
right,
So it's
right.
not like you're put out by buying this. You were going to buy it anyway. You're just happy people can come over and play it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Now, they mentioned campaign games, and we brought that up a bunch of times. Would it be different if it was like a regular game? Like, if it was, let's just a popular game, Catan, for example, and you guys were like
Which is
one of
probably
those groups.
$15 right now at Walmart.
Right. Or I what's an expensive non-campaign game?
I mean, oh man, let's say, I mean, there's, if it's like Kickstarter, maybe they went all in on like the Marvel United stuff from Simon, which is, if you got all of it, it's like $400 or something.
Okay. So, like, you bought that, but that's also the same thing of, like, you're a collector, so you're gonna buy all
Yeah.
that anyway. But, would they charge for that as well?
Yeah, and that's definitely, it feels worse to me.
Right.
It feels like that is, yeah, even more offensive, to be like, I just bought Wingspan. Please give me $5 because
To
I
cover
bought
my costs.
Wingspan. Yeah, it's like, would you, like, for any other activity, doesn't it seem ridiculous to be like, "Hey, come over. I just bought a new Blu-ray. We're all gonna
I was
watch
just
The
thinking that.
Matrix
Yep.
together." It's a cover charge though, $2 to hang out and watch The Matrix.
Right. Because, like I said, it sounds like it's just give me money for the opportunity to play this game.
Yeah, which yeah, it
Like
almost, it feels almost like there's an argument for it to be reasonable in my head when you are talking about a campaign game, but I feel
Mhm.
like if you do that exercise and swap in any other type of activity at your home at
It
least,
doesn't make sense.
it doesn't it feels very wrong.
Right.
Which is different from, like, if you're going to an escape room. Now, why does that feel different? Is it because you're going out somewhere and, like, doing something?
Yeah, because it's you're paying for the I'm not gonna say the actors, but the staff. You're paying for the building that it's in. There's a whole like a dinner theater thing to it. Like, I guess
Mhm.
just theater thing to it. Where, like, this is at somebody's home, which they already assuming I think it's at their home, which they already pay for because they live there. It's
Right.
not like a they're not dressing up their house to match said game, assuming. They're not, providing costumes. It's like it's just you're putting a game on a table.
This is like that old penny arcade comic where they're talking about the at the time new Final Fantasy game for GameCube that required you had to have a Game Boy Advance to
Mhm.
play it. It was a multiplayer game, so you looked at like the TV and your Game Boy screen
Okay.
simultaneously, and people were like, complaining because they're like, oh, you have to like buy a Game Boy, you have to buy this cable to hook it up to the GameCube, and the comic is like, oh, and now I have to buy a TV to play it on. Oh, and now
Right.
I got to buy a house to live in. Oh, and I don't have any friends, so I gotta hire 4 prostitutes to play it with.
Right. So,
Now I don't have. Now I'm broke. Thanks, Nintendo. Yeah, like there's a certain point where it's like, how much do you expect people to throw in versus? And
right.
I think another difference, like with the escape room thing, you're that is an you're all in the same playing field in that instance.
Mhm.
You're all like, or like if you're going to see a movie or a play or something or a concert,
Right.
you're all putting a ticket in and seeing the same thing. This is like someone's home turf, and maybe that's part of, maybe to them it's a part of a burden of like, well, I'm gonna have to clean up after you, I'm gonna have to deal with your shoes on the carpet or something. I
But
don't
they
know.
don't always have to like, if you are friends with these people, or you know them well enough to invite them into your home, you don't need to be the one that always hosts it. Like, our
True.
game nights, we split between 2 locations.
Mhm. Primarily,
So,
yeah.
like, it's not as much I mean, I don't host it, so it's not that much of a burden because you can split it. So, like, one person has the games at one house, you play those games at that house, you play one person's games at another house, so you're back and forth. Where the same thing can happen unless, out of this group, everyone else refuses to
Yeah.
host.
This
But
sounds like this person is, they're the ones who are orchestrating everything,
right.
and probably my guess is they just started doing that, and then everyone else just was like, that's just how it is, and everyone
Right.
was happy with the situation. It could be a thing too of maybe this person has like a table or a situation where they can leave their game set up
Yeah.
interminably. And it's like a pain to set up and put away. So they're just like, it's out here forever. We don't have to move it. You just come over, it's ready to play. Which also would, if that's the case, that would eliminate the argument of them wanting money for the setup time.
Oh,
But
yeah. But it also seems like from some of the wording in the article that it's
love calling it an article. Sounds very
the
intelligent.
case. We'll say the case.
The
So
case.
in the case that, like, they also come off as kind of like an alpha gamer
Yeah,
in
yeah.
certain
It's hard to
ways.
say. It
So,
there's
like,
Yeah.
are they controlling in that way? And then people are kind of like, well, we'll give this guy some, we'll give this money so he won't complain about it the entire time and, be a D bag about it.
That's again. There are some murky details here. I have to assume.
Don't talk about his merkin.
Well,
Are we paying for
he
that too?
he puts it out there. That's what I'm going to talk about. I have to assume that this would make much more sense to me if this was like a listing on meetup.com or something, or Craigslist,
Right.
or like a posting at the local game store saying, "Hey, I want to play Pandemic Legacy, but I don't have anyone to play it with. Take a tab, call this number. If you're willing to contribute $10, let's all meet up and play it together."
Right.
Still, like, I don't know, that's not my bag. I probably wouldn't want to do that with a stranger.
Right.
It'd feel like a little weird, but makes a little more sense than if this is just a normal friend group and they're just like, pay me for this. That feels so entitled. That feels like
Yeah, it's like
eh,
I
like
because
yeah.
well, because I'm trying to like piece things because like at the end of it, like okay, if the money's going towards said game, you're also like if it's a replayable game, you're paying for this guy's game that he could play again somewhere else. So like, is he
Right.
profiting from our fun on this?
Do you get to take home a port? Do you every other month, if you ask for the game to borrow, do you get custody of it for the rest
Well,
of the?
that's like if this the owner of the game decides to sell said game, do you get a fourth of the game?
What if the game's no longer fun to you? Do you get a refund?
Right.
What if you don't
Yeah,
want to
like
play anymore?
what guarantees are in this? Like, are you guaranteeing that these four people are always going to be there to play it because you're paying for it? Are you getting, like they don't explain what's
There need to be
like
perks involved.
right. And if
No,
it's just the game, like if you're just giving them the money to recoup the cost of the game, that's kind of I don't know. Then just make it so like if this is your regular game group, person A buys the game this month, person B buys the game next month, and so on and so forth.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is just yeah. Next, you get the next camp. Like it's, I guess it's maybe it's one thing if this person is. It's a very different situation if the group is like, "Hey, we want to play this next,
Right.
so will you buy it?" you know,
Right.
it sounds like this person is completely of their own volition purchasing these games, and if that's the case, then that's doesn't make as much sense. It would be one thing if everybody again was like, hey, we want to play this, so go ahead and do it. But yeah, or either buy the game next time or just like, you guys get dinner this time,
Right.
one time is fine.
And it also doesn't sound like it's a setup fee. Like it doesn't sound like it's a you're buying helping me buy this game. It's give me $20 to $30 randomly.
10 to 20, let's be clear,
Oh,
10 to
10 to
20.
20 randomly. So like what is that randomly when like what
Yeah, yeah.
triggers it?
Right. When they have a payment to make on something, and they want to
Right.
buy something, they're like, "Oh yeah, 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 I better ask for some money." Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's
No,
like the
that's
weird
very
thing.
strange. Yes, the occasionally is very strange. It's not specified if it's like just when they buy a game.
It would make more sense if they're like, "Hey, this game cost $100. Give me $20 so we can cover the cost of the game." That
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't like it, but it would make more sense at that point than just, "Oh, hey, when you guys come over, bring $10."
Right. Now, what is your reaction if someone says this to you? And I know what your reaction would be if it was me. You'd be like, you, and you
Right.
wouldn't do it. But let's say it's someone who you're not as like you know,
So, like, let's go, like, to when I
friendly
was
with.
heavier in gaming and, like, college and stuff,
Yeah,
and you're
maybe it's
trying
like
to
someone
go
in
out.
college.
I probably wouldn't go, to be honest
Right?
with you. Like, it if it's a group of strangers, I don't like I probably wouldn't pay.
And what if it's like it's your third game session, you're about to sit down and they spring it on. They're just like, by the way, if everybody could, slip me $10, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, there would be an argument. Like, it would escalate, be like, "Oh, what is this for? Why the $10?" Or and it would probably get further and further up because, I'm Irish and German, that's how we do things. But, um,
It's a rough combo.
but I also think, like, as a group, that group just would dissolve.
Right.
Like, we played, let's say, 3 sessions, and then they're like, "Oh, hey, I need $10, $5, whatever it is, for said gameplay out of nowhere." I just wouldn't show up next week.
Yeah, I think if it were me, I would also not show up next week. However, I would probably still play the rest of that session sheepishly and just the whole time be like, these people are crazy. What the hell?
Right.
Now I don't
Oh,
know
yeah,
if
I wouldn't walk out right then,
yeah,
but I'd be
I
like,
don't.
"Sure, I'll give you the $5 next time," and just there was
Oh,
wouldn't be a next
okay.
time.
Okay, yeah. You just say, "Oh, I'll get you next time." You wouldn't. Yeah, I'm like part. I think if it were me, if everyone else was giving him money, I might be peer pressured into like, okay, I guess.
Right,
But it also depends on what if you are really having fun. What if it is like a game you really wanted to play and that the group is like very friendly. Then maybe it's a little trickier. Then maybe I'd just talk to them and be like, "Hey, that's." I mean, I wouldn't because I hate. I would avoid confrontation at all
right.
costs. But I
Well,
would be. I don't know. I might be peer pressured.
I would be peer pressured if they had good arguments.
Hmm.
If there was good reason, like, "Hey, I'm like I said, I'm going to make some upgrades. I'm going to buy the campaign,
The
the upgrades
game.
for the game." But just to recoup the cost of the game that he or she or they already paid for? No. Like, yeah, if it was fun, I would probably go out, I would buy the game myself and invite the other 2 people. Like,
I love it. I'd rather spend my own $50 than give you 10.
right,
Invite him too. You can come and play in our
right.
game, but it ends free. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
just feel like it would also be like, we've played with strangers, we've played with people that we do and don't like, we've played with a broad group of people,
We played with broads.
but this has, like, never come up, and we've played with some real, sketchy folks that come to mind
we
that
we
would,
go
like,
out
do
under
this.
the Brooklyn Bridge with a
Don't
folding table and
don't talk about our days shooting craps back in high school.
yeah, no, it is like it has never once crossed my mind to be like I said at the beginning, because I'm the one who wants these games. I feel like if
Right,
anything, uh, and maybe this is just a very big difference in certain people's personality types, but if anything, I worry that I'm burdening the other players by asking them to play with me.
right,
Like, I feel guilty being like, please sit down with me for an hour for a game that maybe you won't like, and I'm like, God, I hope they like it. Let alone come back and meet up with me for the next 5 months to play the same game again and
right.
again.
Because going with that standpoint, you are paying with your time, and, from the Rocco's Modern Life episode, time is money. You probably don't remember that episode.
Is that when he with the comic book, or is that
When
something
he was
different?
yeah, he was working at the comic book shop, and he kept showing up late to work, and the boss who had the froggy boss with the bad hair plugs kept, like, smashing a clock over his head. I'll post a
Just so
link
you know,
somewhere.
I don't think Rocco's Modern Life is the origin of that phrase.
No, but that's what comes to my mind.
Okay, just
Yeah.
making sure. But
No,
anyway, yes,
capitalism is the,
Conglommo, we own
conglomerate.
you.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Where
yeah,
were you?
I don't know.
What was your point?
So yeah, so time is yeah, you're coming out, you're spending between 2 and 6 hours because we've played games that have lasted that long. So like, not that you're saying like my presence is your presence to be like that gross about it, but like you're right, you're coming out, you're giving up time to play this game even though you still want to play it, but like paying for it is a whole thing. I don't know.
But I'm also coming at it from a place of, I mean, yeah, we have board gaming friends, but there are also people who maybe aren't the biggest board gamers. Maybe
Right.
it's different if you're in a situation where the other people you're playing with like want to play this game real bad.
Right.
I still think I don't agree with it, but that's maybe a possibility.
But if they want to play the game real bad, they're going to end up either
That's
buying
when
it
you
on their own.
yeah, you wait them out. Like, see how long they can wait to buy it.
But like, yeah, I don't, and then like maybe it's a different social economic kind of thing. Like, sure, maybe this guy doesn't have the money to play or pay or buy the game, but then you just don't buy the game.
Right. Yes, there's lots of other options out there.
Like, there have been definite times where I'm like, oh, do I buy this video game or pay for my bills this month? Like you pick one, you know?
And there are some cheaper campaign games that aren't going to run you $100.
Right.
I mean, there's like off the top of my head, there's The Crew, which I think is a great ongoing game, can be played as a campaign, and it's like $20 or something.
Now, did they in the case file, did they mention what the game was?
I do not believe it was they said that they have done this for multiple games. So I think they
Right.
did mention Pandemic Legacy as an example, but I think it's been the case for more than one.
Yeah, like, I don't and I'm assuming it's the same group, like you said, like we were reading, that come back from time to time. Maybe excuse me, maybe it's just an agreed on thing,
Yeah,
but
right. It's weird if you're
as
the one entering the group and you didn't know that.
right, and, like, what how did said person enter the group? Was he a friend of somebody? Was he just a Craigslist creep that, was went to the group? Does Craigslist still exist anymore?
Still exists. Yeah, yeah,
Alright. Can I buy a liver off there
yeah.
still? That's still a thing?
You
Alright.
can. You can.
So, yeah, so there's a few questions, but it just makes me it would make me feel uneasy.
Now I do think that now I'm thinking about dungeon mastering though. Specifically, I think if any place there's an argument for this, it might be in tabletop role playing games,
Right.
only for the DM. Assuming also like if is the DM buying multiple books? Is the DM buying minis? Is the DM like how many hours a week are they putting into
Mhm.
like coming up with campaign? Now I don't know if I would say like pay them a fee, but maybe you get them their dinner each week or something in
Right.
exchange for that. But again, I, I, I personally, I would feel very uncomfortable saying
Well,
that.
and you're saying, like, that if the DM's buying the minis and stuff, that should also be like, if you're buying a mini for your character and you're buying dice and like, that should be the individual player
I agree.
buying their own, like, everyone should have their own dice set, everyone should have their own mini, everyone should have their own, like, because if the DM doesn't make said characters.
Right.
Usually the individual player makes their characters and, has their own dice. It's like even in, like, Magic, like, each individual person, I'm assuming, I've never played Magic, plays there with their own set. Like, you don't go in and pay unless it's a tournament.
Yeah, now there are, game stores, but that's different. It's a game store. Will have like magic nights where you pay some money and you get some new cards and you play with those cards. But you get
Right.
cards out of it. Like you go home with
Right.
something.
Right.
It's
You
not
you get a thing. Like, and even like you're saying with the DM, somebody's doing the pre-work.
right.
Somebody's writing a script if you're a really good DM. Somebody's taking their time out to do a script, making maps, doing whatever. That would make more sense over here, put game on table, I'm hosting, which sounds like
Yeah.
this thing.
Well, it sounds like we're ready for verdicts.
So who are we who
We're judging Chris, the game hosts tonight.
the game host who is asking for money.
Yes, guilty or not guilty in this case? Is he in the
I will
wrong?
I will let you
Yes.
take the floor.
All right. So I think our opinions are both pretty clear at this point. I think it's pretty obvious which way we're leaning. I may be a little bit more generous towards Chris in saying that I sort of understand the desire to do something like this if you are
Mhm.
putting in the bulk of the work. And in
Right.
some cases, it may even be somewhat justified in a sense. But at the same time, I feel, and maybe this is right and maybe this is wrong, but just from the perspective of social norms, it just feels like it's not cool to do this.
Right.
Even if you maybe a little bit do deserve it, like you said, ask for dinner, ask to buy the next game, but to charge a fee, that's too far, which is why I gotta say, guilty, guilty, like that.
Yeah, I'm 100% on the same bandwagon as you because, you know, unless you had a predetermined arrangements in the beginning that was like, "Hey, I'm buying this game. It costs $400. Can you all chip in a little bit?" Not the full amount of the game, because in the end, you are, as the owner of the game, still owning said game. Chip in some money to help out. Um, and also, like, if you are hosting it, you're right. Bring snacks. Ask them to bring items with them. Sure, but I still think he's fully guilty. He shouldn't be requiring pay for play, and I feel like if I was a newbie to this table, I would walk out the door. So
So guilty? Oh yeah, you
guilty
said guilty. You pretty much
twice.
said it. Yeah, well, I needed another one just to confirm. Yeah, well, there you have it. Officially guilty on this one. Now the question is, how do we sentence Chris? What is their punishment for this wrongdoing?
Mm,
I mean, top of my head is force them to like pay for a recurring campaign of like an ongoing Cards Against Humanity exploding kittens game night.
mm.
You're sentenced to 3 months of weekly exploding kittens, and it's $5 per night.
Mine would be go through and unsleeve all of his cards in every
Oh,
game that he owns.
you're really going for something cruel. You're
Yep.
really going for the
Well,
low
yours is
blow.
pretty cruel as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Fine, you know what? Make them have to play, Cards Against Humanity once a week before this game hits the table.
Yeah, maybe that's too. Is there something more, O. Henry-ish that we can
Right.
specifically, ironically target in regards to the campaign game? Most campaign games are at least like decent. I don't know what the
Yeah. Have them play Monopoly every week.
there. Oh, there you go. Well, Monopoly might as well be a campaign game because it'll take
Right.
you 7 hours to play through. That or Munchkin can take forever. So
Yeah, Munchkin has been one of those games where it could take 3 minutes or you're there for the night.
yeah, and it's probably the latter. It's
Yeah.
probably the latter.
Now,
Uh,
did we find out was, verdict done, sentencing done? Was this in the US?
Yeah, I'm, not 100% sure. I assume
Because
that it is, but I don't know.
this seems like it would be a very us thing to do.
To charge money for
Right.
games?
To charge money.
Oh, the US, not us, the Americans in general.
Right. Right.
Yeah, if this was over in, like, Germany where people love board games, everybody's got a copy, they're all happy, they come together, and they never had
Right.
any issues in Germany over there.
Right.
They've
Ever.
been
They've never had one issue in Germany since they were created. Not one.
to my understanding, they've been
Not
in top shape. Good standing all along. But I'm
always.
I'm not a history buff, so maybe people
Neither am
can
I.
email us and tell us if I'm wrong.
Where can they
Uh,
email us?
oh, you can email us with any thoughts, questions, or comments, your opinion on today's verdict and case, or if we would love it if you would submit your very own case. You can do that with geeksontrial@gmail.com is the address. Now, we are going to have a slightly more official form at some
Yes.
point that allows you to submit your cases in better detail. So we may have a link to that as well in the description of the episode. But you can also always still email us, and we'll sort that out as the show evolves. And we also, I guess, can plug ourselves. We didn't plug
Right.
ourselves last time,
No.
but, but I'll just briefly say you can follow me on Twitter at Quence. And you can also find other projects that I do, YouTube and the web and whatnot, at my personal site, which is jonathanestis.com.
You can find me. I review snack foods most of the time over on YouTube, youtube.com/the snack guy. And also, if you want to pay to play and give us money for our podcast and get early episodes, video and audio, you can head over to patreon.com/geeks on trial. It's only $3 a month. And that little bit of money helps us stay afloat as a podcast.
One thing we can all agree on, it is not a faux pas to ask for money for for a weekly
No,
podcast. That's completely kosher. You get way more value out of this than any
it's
campaign
true.
game you're ever going to play.
True, and it helps us, become bigger and better, and we can get better equipment. So
Yeah.
there's
You can
that.
also like us on iTunes. Give us a rating on iTunes. That helps too, by
And
the way.
thumbs up and do whatever YouTube wants you to do because we do this also.
We're everywhere.
We're video, audio, photo, print, whatever you want to get. We got it.
We're working the kinks out. We'll figure it out. All right, everybody. I guess I'm Jonathan.
I'm Ivan, and this has been Geeks on Trial.